Bring back some gold.
Gold. Bring back an arrowhead. Okay, I'm working on a historical site because, you know.
Did they teach you whip cracking and run away from boulders in college?
Oh my gosh.
I wish.
Don't get buried in the hole. Well, I mean, like
I know, actually. Not.
That actually happens? Are you serious? People get buried in the hole?
I've been threatened.
Yeah, I mean, definitely everyone, I feel like, who isn't in kind of the anthropology field kind of even has these, like, misconceptions, even a little bit.
This one guy I worked with, I used to work as like a waitress, and someone asked me what my major was, and I said archaeology, and he goes, oh, well, you know, we'll always need bridges, thinking, you know, architect. And so a lot of times when I say anthropology, they don't really know what it is, so I have to like actually explain it to them, and then they get actually like really interested.
Even my own husband made a gaffe a few years ago, joking around about how anthropologists study dinosaurs, and he was being serious, right, because he forgot for a minute, you know, what it is that anthropology.
In an academic sense, anthropology is the study of humankind, and it's holistic, meaning that it's everything about humans ever. The four like common subfields are like linguistic, archaeological, cultural, and biological, but people argue that like there's other ones like applied and medical.
Archaeology is like the study of past human cultures. We go out, like we dig, find stuff. Yeah, for the material culture. We don't necessarily have to dig. There's a lot of historical records. We can do it through the landscape. It's
There's
basically
3 different types.
Understanding human behavior, human past, human civilization, human culture through time. Through the material culture, and the material culture is basically the trash they left behind.
Anthropology was originally created during colonialism to help learn about the primitive people and the native people, and it basically was a science created to conquer people, and we know now that that's not what we want to do, but rather we want to give a supportive environment, and we want to give a voice to people, and we want to make sure that everyone can be heard. Whereas in the past, it was definitely used in more conquering, like we're using this information to make them not as good or not as safe, or help them be conquered, or we're giving this information just directly to a government that would make decisions for what would happen with that research. Whereas now we actually are taking hold of it and helping people and trying our best in a lot of applied ways to make things better for people that might not have all the resources at their disposal. So at least that's my goal with a lot of it.
So anthropology pushes us to think in very different ways about the world by exploring how people across time and throughout cultures see the world differently and construct their societies differently, have different ways of understanding what's happening and different ways of understanding what it is to be a person. And when you start to exercise that, when you start to explore how other people have ways of being in the world that are very different from our own, I think it allows us a lot more flexibility and creativity with evaluating how it is we do things. So anthropology is the study of human beings across time and throughout cultures in an effort to shed more light on what it is to be human and how the things that we sort of do and think and say are culturally constructed and not necessarily natural or necessary.
So when I was younger, I Googled, I want to study and find out secrets of the past, and a nice Wikipedia page of anthropology came up, and from there I really went in and studied and like just kind of looked around, and I figured out that archaeology would be something that I would want to do for the rest of my life, and so that's kind of how I got into it.
I found out about anthropology after I studied abroad. When I studied abroad, I became really intrigued by their culture and the way they lived, and a lot of the aspects of like them making their food and certain things like that. And so I found out later that I could actually study this for a living, and so I couldn't think of anything else I would want to do with my whole life.
It like blew my mind that you could see so much about humans and human experience and the social world and social inequality.
inequalities and racism and sexism just in the way people talk. It really, really blew my mind. So that was why I went into linguistic anthropology specifically.
I think, like I said, just like how it's changed my perception of things a lot. Like, I always kind of think about something before I do it now, or like think about what other people say before I like form an opinion. I feel like I always just kind of get that, you know, second round of thinking now about like how is, you know, this different than it is in the rest of the world? Why is this the way I think it is? You know, how has this been historically produced, culturally produced, and everything? So I think that's definitely the most influential thing. And from talking to other anthropology students, I can see the same. Something similar.
The greatest thing that anthropology has brought me and influenced me with is that I already thought that I was a really accepting and open-minded person, but after I learned more about anthropology, I was like, no, I could be more open-minded, I could be more accepting, I could be more culturally sensitive, and be more knowledgeable and know how to approach things better and know how to deal with things better and know how to analyze things better and more thoroughly. It's just helped me be more aware, I guess. Basically.
I have learned the coolest stuff from my classes, like everything from like how people eat throughout the world to like how we evolve to how we talk and how our talking makes us think and like just the coolest stuff. Like, I feel like I go to a party and, like, all I want to do is talk about anthropology and, like, these fun little facts that I know. Like, I don't know, you know. Like, I think everyday things, like, I mean, even from, you know, Dr. Adams' like, anthropology of gender class, like, I learned a ton of just, you know, social relations and the LGBTQ class. And
my objective in kind of where anthropology takes us would be to be able to use the methods of our discipline, come up with solutions for social problems that are tenable, embedded in human rights, and are very sensitive to issues of social equity. And I think anthropology as a discipline is something that is able to do that successfully.
Cultural resource management, which is called CRS, is what I want to go into. It's basically the commercial section of archaeology, I guess you could say. Private contractors, you go in, basically they want to construct something by state laws, they have to do an archaeological dig there. So you go ahead, you do a phase 1 or phase 2, which are the beginnings of an archaeology, and sometimes phase 3, which is like the actual excavation. And I don't know, it helps in my mind save a site before it can be lost, and you can find a potential site. So that's what I'm going to do.
Salvage archaeology?
Salvage archaeology, kind of. After that, I'm going to go to grad school and hopefully get a real academic job.
Good. I have a big interest in prehistoric archaeology because I just like the fact that there's nothing there. It's a blank slate, no previously written documented story about bias, and it's a puzzle. But I really like microarchaeology, which is anything less than a quarter inch, because the microartifacts can always tell a different story than the macroartifacts can. So I want to do microarchaeology with prehistoric sites, but I want to work in a lab and I want to do research. Like, I know I'm going to go on to get my master's degree and hopefully try to do most that I can and eventually try to get a PhD, because I really enjoy.
You can do anthropology at sort of the ethnography scale, where you're looking at an individual group or individual culture, but you can also do the ethnology scale, where you're looking at comparative analyses, which tend to be much larger, so anywhere in between. And so for me, it's the ability to sort of see the forest and the trees, which again, you don't often get in other fields. They either look at the forest or the trees or the cell of the tree, right? And they don't necessarily allow for all those perspectives, especially at one time, and to integrate those perspectives that understand both the big and the little picture, because both those pictures have to be resolved to understand what people do.
There's an applied anthropologist who says that bringing an anthropologist onto a team is like transforming things from black and white to color. And I think that's a really great way to think about the contributions of anthropologists in all kinds of settings.
in every African tribe, there's men, women, and a French anthropologist.